Hello, and welcome to the Collapse Experiment, where I will be complaining, to put it politely, about several different things this morning. Let's see here. Check the audio. Okay, that sounds better. Now, before I get into it, this is going to be more of a bitch fest than it will be me reading the news. Because the news as of the last day or two has just been atrocious. It should be eye-opening for a lot of people, but I have a feeling it's there's just some people that are just they have so much invested in their belief structure that even when it's just blatantly in their face, slapping them around, they're gonna be like, no, 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 he loves me, he loves me. And that's pretty much what is going on. Now, the first article, as you may suspect, is about the shooter in the New York subway, which at first there was a lot of suspicion that it was a drum roll white supremacist, because the NYPD refused to call it a terrorist attack, which they're prone to do ever since 9/11. Um, they don't want to label everything as a terrorist attack for the simple fact that uh, it for one, the FBI would get involved right away. The NYPD would no longer be ahead of the investigation, which really makes things very sticky. And but it's funny because the left, who were criticizing the NYPD for protecting white people, they don't have any understanding of how this system works. And it's very obvious. The first article is from Zero Hedge. You guys looking for me? Brooklyn subway shooter allegedly calls cops on self. Now, there's already a lot of sketchy details when it comes to this. For one, he was first described as an Asian man by one witness. Most people said he was about 5'5", dressed like a subway worker or city worker. Left his credit card with the weapon. Doesn't exactly sound like somebody who had this planned out, but as we know, it was planned out because there are several explosives that were not detonated. He used a smoke bomb in order to cause chaos within the subway car, started shooting people. It was planned out. Not sure why he would leave a credit card there. It's almost, as one person pointed out on YouTube, kind of reminds me of the whole passport found in the middle of the street after two airliners crashed into the Twin Towers, but somehow this thing survived. So this is an update. NYPD sources tell NBC New York, so that's where Zero Hedge got this from, that Frank James called a Crime Stoppers tip line on himself. James was apparently at McDonald's on the Lower East Side when he told police, "This is Frank, you guys looking for me? My phone is about to die." So, I mean, if Lee Harvey Oswald, the cops show up, the first thing he says is, "I'm not going to be your patsy." This guy did the opposite of an Oswald. Oswald was what, at a movie theater when they picked him up on the street, and this guy's just like, "You guys looking for me?" When police arrived at McDonald's, James wasn't there. After canvassing the area, they found the shooter. Funny how they didn't say alleged shooter. Near St. Mark's Place, First Avenue, East Village, around, let's see here, this would have been 1:45 in the afternoon. Shooting suspect didn't resist during the arrest. I'll get to that one later. James had been held in the 9th precinct for questioning. We know earlier that he would likely face federal terrorism charges and a life sentence in prison. Investigators are expected to show James cross state lines to commit the violent act. They're really big on the state lines thing lately. And he's not even white. I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse, that was like the only thing that they really were pushing that was just made up. But hey, since he did cross, I mean, that does bring it in the federal jurisdiction, which I guess is good. We hope this arrest brings some solace to the people of New York. Confirm the arrest. Also, suspect will be hit with federal charges. Okay, it's just reiterating the same stuff. But yeah, so he's at a McDonald's, somehow finds out that they're looking for him, calls the tip line, and they pick him up. So yeah, I'm gonna already call this one suspicious because this is not the act of somebody who's on the run. And who knows what we're going to get out of this later. Obviously, they're probably going to be like, yeah, here's your YouTube channel. You want to have anything to say? I didn't do it. Are you sure? That's another topic I will be covering later is this dude's YouTube channel and Facebook and Twitter. Because it's very apparent that some people are allowed to violate the terms and conditions of use, and other people are not. So, yeah. Let's get into the Federal Bureau of Incompetence, shall we? I'm gonna set the phone aside because this story already in several ways has royally pissed me off. So here's a guy, Frank James, has a YouTube channel where he consistently calls for the death, murder, genocide of white people, of Asians. He recently criticized the new addition of the Supreme Court because he was furious to find out that she had married a white man. Now, if we roll with that one, we could probably find the cause of why he started going around shooting people, because you've got the current vice president who's not black but claims to be black. She's married to a white man. You have AOC who's dating a white guy. I'm not even going to say a man. Have you seen pictures of this dude? Wears freaking flip-flops and cargo shorts and looks like somebody who plays video games for like 16 hours a day. That's AOC's boyfriend. I'm trying to think of the other the other one who's also married to a white guy. But apparently all these people who are complaining about colonization and white people, well, they have no problem being dominated in the sheets, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that was one thing that he went off about. He was basically saying that white people and black people have no business living in the same hemisphere on the earth, that there needed to be some type of separation between the two. This guy was straight out calling for the death of certain people due to the color of their skin and the way that they're born. And his videos were allowed to stay up. Meanwhile, you couldn't say certain words like, oh, Kim Iverson McIntyre, certain drugs that have a pronunciation like that. If you're saying anything that goes against the COVID narrative, your channel was removed, or your video was removed, or you're demonetized. But this guy still roaming around on the internet. Not a problem, because he's a black nationalist instead of a white supremacist. Either way, you're a dirty racist. Doesn't make any sense to me. I don't get it. I don't That's as somebody who's had their Twitter account locked for I think I don't know 3-4 months now. One of my Twitter accounts. Um, yeah, it was all because I referred to Joe Biden as a cracker. I'm a white dude. Last time I checked, we joke around with each other all the time and use different slurs and joke around. You cracker. um, yeah, and Biden wasn't even mentioned in my tweet. I was referring to somebody else's tweet where I was like, what that C word do now? Some reason I'm waking up totally congested these days. Guessing it's allergy season. Yeah, so while this guy's roaming around on the internet spreading his hatred, he's also on the FBI terror watch list. You know, that thing that prevents you from being on a plane? He's on that list. So here's a guy who shouldn't be online according to certain terms and regulations when it comes to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. He's violating all their policies, but it's okay because he's a black man. You also have him being on the terror watch list. He's still able to get his hands on a gun, even though there's a universal background check, which, if it turns out he purchased this gun legally, again, is a failure on behalf of the FBI. Because when they run his driver's license or his ID, the store owner should be coming back saying, yeah, sorry, there's an issue. You're going to have to come back later. That's what should have happened. That's the system that's in place right now. If I were to go in and I didn't know I was on a watch list of some kind, the FBI would flag me and say, no, Mr. Gun Shop owner, you cannot sell to this man. And then the gun shop owner comes back, hands me my ID, and says, sorry, I can't sell to you today. That should have been the extent of the transaction. But instead, what we have here is the guy was able to get his hands on a gun, go into a subway with several smoke bombs, start shooting people, and get away. Allegedly. I mean, we are still innocent until proven guilty. That's still a thing here, I think. Except for the whole cancel culture thing, which you get accused and you're immediately guilty and lose your job and all kinds of other horrible shit. Yeah, because that's how democracy and a free country works. So, while this guy is getting his hands on a gun while being on a terror watch list and spouting out all kind of hateful content and hate speech online, the FBI is busy in my beautiful northern Michigan trying to convince meth heads and autistic people to kidnap the governor of our state. Does anybody see a problem here? There were more FBI agents and informants in this militia plotting to kidnap the governor than the actual participants of the militia. But Frank James is running around with a gun trying to kill white people. But that's okay. We can't judge him because he's black. Meanwhile, if these militia members at any time posted on Facebook or Twitter or YouTube anything offensive about the governor because she's a Democrat and she has really shitty COVID policies, that would have been removed. They would have had their account suspended, and the FBI would have been like, dude, you're ruining our plot. Like, you want to kidnap the governor, right? That's what you want. No, I just think she's a bitch. Dude, you want to kidnap her, you want to put her on trial, you want to torture her after. That's what you want to do, right? Nah, shouldn't you be beating your wife at some orgy or something? Which is what the lead FBI guy gets caught doing later. He ends up being arrested outside of an orgy for beating his wife because she was apparently enjoying it too much, as you could say. Doesn't sound like somebody who's very secure in his masculinity. So yeah, that's what we're dealing with here. The Federal Bureau of Incompetence. You have Joe Biden running around saying white people are the biggest problem. You've got let's just go down the line here, okay? You have Kenosha, where a black man who's very vocal about Black Lives Matter, the organization, not the movement, runs over women, children, and other participants in a parade because he's pissed off about white people. Yeah, that story freaking disappeared. Weird. And then the news story, the news channels are out there saying, well, the car, it was the car, just like it's always the gun, right? Yeah, it's never the shooter, it's never the mind of the shooter, it's never the person engaging in the act that's the problem. No, it's the gun. If he just didn't have the gun made him do it. It's like, Son of Sam. That's the argument he should. It wasn't the dog. No, he should have just said, the gun made me do it. He would have been ahead of his time, and now liberals would probably be worshiping his ass because they're like, see, Son of Sam knew what was going on. It was the gun. It wasn't him. So yeah, we've got the Kenosha incident. We also have the guy who met Obama because he was a very big on the civil rights movement, right? He was doing all this great powerful work. Who decided to go into a campaign headquarters and try to assassinate the Democratic candidate because the guy didn't agree 100% with everything that this guy thought. And then BLM bailed him out. It's actually, there's a positive side to the story here because BLM actually used the money donated to them to help a black person. Drum roll. Because we haven't seen anything out of BLM except for buying mansions and expensive houses and white neighborhoods for their founders. Or communist headquarters in foreign countries like Canada. Yeah, that seems to be their MO. We just buy up real estate. I don't know if they're planning on like starting franchises, which they've already done, or if they're just like, well, hey, the Vatican did it and McDonald's did it. We should be doing this too. Yeah, so there's that incident nobody wants to talk about. Thankfully, either the guy had the safety on or he didn't know how to function a handgun, as most radical liberals don't know. But thankfully, that plot was foiled. He didn't kill the guy, but definitely an assassination attempt on a political figure. Don't hear much about that anymore. The subway story, man, it starts out, everybody is in an uproar. Oh my God, somebody's attacking New York again. What are we going to do? Nobody ever, at any point in time, did I ever see a story saying possible Muslim extremist or anything like that we would have expected to hear like 15, 20 years ago. Nothing. It was more of like, well, this was obviously planned. We don't know who did it. Waiting to find out. Some stories came out from eyewitness accounts, and other stories finally came out as like, we found this credit card right next to the gun. Well, let's roll with this. Oh, yeah. So if the FBI wasn't trying to track down white people, what could they accomplish? Oh, I remember the good old days when the FBI actually did their job, And with this whole Frank James situation, they had an eye on him. They had him on the list. They kind of knew what he was up to. They're like, nah, just go along, do your thing, man. We support you. Back in my day, I remember when they would just find that person, give them a van full of explosives, and say, park it at this spot in the parking ramp in the basement of the World Trade Center, and we'll see what happens. Of course, the bomb wasn't actually supposed to be functional. They were just trying to arrest the guy for being an active terrorist, even though the guy apparently had some learning disorders and could easily be convinced to do certain stupid things. But yeah, I remember those good old days, or when they show up at your house and they know that you have financial problems and they're like, hey, I'd really like to buy this shotgun from you, but the barrel's a little too long on it. I'll pay you this much if you just cut a little bit off the tip. If you could just do that shotgun circumcision, we'd have a deal. And the guy was like, no. Randy Weaver was like, no. Well, if you're not going to cut the barrel for me, I'm only going to pay you this much. No. And then finally, he's just like, oh my God, this guy just won't. Fine, I'll cut the goddamn barrel. Here you go. Give me the money. Just go away. Just go away now, please. And then what do? They try to turn him into an informant. And again, he's just like, no, like I have to live here. These are my neighbors. I'm not going to become an informant for you. And you're the one that wanted me to cut the barrel off of my shotgun to sell it to you. So that's kind of on you too. And then they, killed his dog, his kid, his wife that was holding the baby inside the house. And yeah, I mean, the FBI has always been good at doing their job. I don't know why we don't give them more money. It's not like they should be defunded or anything. Oh, Rocket Moon. Back when they found the Unabomber. Eventually. Oh, yes, Rocket Moon. My one viewer, according to this. Ruby Ridge. Yes, Randy Weaver, Ruby Ridge. Unfortunately, I can't really bring up Waco because that was the AFT, as Biden likes to call them. But the Unabomber, the series that they had on, I think it was Manhunter on Netflix, not accurate at all when it came to the actual manhunt. I did read several books on how they caught the Unabomber, but they did have a point where when they were trying to link Kaczynski to the manifesto, and they had the brothers' letters, it wasn't the linguistics there that they used to say like, well, he used this phrase and this phrase is used here in this document. That wasn't a science. So he kind of had a point there. Plus, Kaczynski was really smart, didn't talk to anyone. He never talked to the FBI. He just sat there in silence the entire time. The only request that he made specifically was when he was in jail, he wanted his books, from my understanding. I think the big thing that got him convicted was the fact that he had a bomb he had not mailed yet that was actually in the shed. But everything leading up to the warrant, getting into the shack itself, to me, it didn't seem like the actual search warrant was legit. I'm not saying Kaczynski is innocent. He's definitely not innocent. He's written several books afterwards in prison, including publishing the letters that he sent to several other people while he was acting as the Unabomber. Let's see here. Technological Slavery is one of his post-Unabomber books. But yeah, at least the FBI did catch the Unabomber. Can't really agree with how they went about doing it, but at least it happened. There's one agent in particular that, because of certain books that were referenced in the manifesto, they believe that they would have tracked down Kaczynski anyways because he requested his local library to get those books for him. And they were not, for one, they weren't widely published, and two, not widely accessible. So there's speculation they would have eventually caught him anyways. Oh, so yeah, the FBI, bunch of racists hunting down white people, and meanwhile we've got dudes going around in Brooklyn shooting the place up because can't go after him. On to other topics. Oh yeah, let's get on to the other crappy piece of information. Grand Rapids, Michigan, which is about an hour and a half south of me. Businesses brace for potential unrest after release of deadly shooting video. I did watch this video. I know some people will say like, "Oh, it's very graphic," and it is what it is. It was a guy resisting arrest, took the police officer's taser, continued to resist arrest afterwards. So technically, he is armed with a potential deadly weapon. The officer ends up shooting him in the back of the head, which a lot of people are pissed off about. But if you watch the video, there's good reason for that. And yes, I'm probably going to get flagged on YouTube, and I don't really give a shit. I'm not monetized. I don't have that many followers, and I don't give a shit. If anything, I hope that me speaking my mind would actually bring more people to the channel, because I have a feeling there's other people that think the same way I do. The city of Grand Rapids braced for possible protest Wednesday, hours before police plan to release videos of a deadly police shooting. Grand Rapids officer killed 26-year-old Patrick Lalo on Monday, April 4th, following a traffic stop. Calls for police to release videos of the shooting have intensified since then. The protests and marches in the city. Police plan to release at least 9 videos of the shooting during a press conference that's slated to start at 3 p.m. Wednesday. Demonstrations are currently planned. Blah blah blah. We do not currently anticipate any threats to people or property in the downtown area. Yeah, that's why everybody boarded up like they wish they would have done 2 years ago. One employee said after experiencing the riots in Grand Rapids in 2020, after the murder of George Floyd, she wasn't sure what to expect but decided to err on the side of caution. Yeah, as you would, because the police did nothing that night, or the night after, or the night after that. They just let their patrol cars get torched. You know, the ones that we paid for, the ones that come out of our tax dollars, they're just like, let it burn. We tax people anyways. We can get new ones. So this guy, Layola, he's an immigrant from the Congo. Came here, was set up with a family, was had a place to live. Not sure about his employment or job situation, but I do know that his arrest record is pretty lengthy, and it included assault and battery on a pregnant woman. Sounds familiar. Can't think of anybody else who died at the hands of police while resisting arrest that had previously assaulted a pregnant woman. So yeah, he was driving around in a car that had a stolen plate. Police tried to pull him over. He refused to pull over. When he did pull over, he ran out of the vehicle. Police chased after him. He then resisted arrest when police caught up to him, grabbed a taser from a police officer. While he was on the ground, the police officer was trying to cuff him, but the dude was getting up. And at the time that he was shot, he was on his hands and knees with the officer above him, but the guy was turning around with the potential to shoot the officer with the taser. And had he done that, he could have gotten the cop's gun and killed the cop. But that is nothing that anybody wants to talk about. They want to talk about he was on the ground and the officer should have been able to control him. That's not how this works. And there was one idiot on Twitter who was from Brazil who was saying, oh, the officer should have been able to knock him out by punching him in the back of the head, which most people in the martial arts community would know you aren't allowed to hit to the back of the head because it's the softest spot in the skull and there's the risk of killing somebody. So this dude in Brazil is saying the cop should have just killed the guy by hitting him instead of shooting him. Thought that was interesting. I love how people on Twitter talk about stuff that they claim to know about, but they actually just prove that they don't know shit. It's very interesting. So yeah, I watched the video. That was what I got out of it was the fact that this guy was armed. He had already stolen a weapon from a police officer. There was the potential of him still using it on the officer while he was being arrested. He was resisting arrest. The officer continued. I think he told him at least twice, maybe 3 times, put the taser down, put the taser down, put the taser down. And the guy continued to get up, turn towards the officer. That's when the officer shot. Again, this also goes back to the other guy. I can't remember the names of all these people. Say his name. But the dude that went into the car and was reaching for the knife was kidnapping his girlfriend's kids. The kids were in the car. He was trying to get in the car to get away after sexually assaulting, raping the kid's mom while they were there. He had done this previously, and then when the officer's trying to get him out of the car, knows that he's reaching for a knife, shoots the guy in the back, cripples him, doesn't kill him, and people are still complaining. Shouldn't have shot him in the back. Yeah, how about you become a police officer, and then in 5 or 10 years, we'll come back to you and say, what do you think about these certain situations? What are your thoughts on this now? Because I love how people enjoy talking about shit that they don't understand, they'll never experience, and they're just like on their keyboard. I would have. Yeah, you've never even hit a judo mat, so just shut up. Yeah. So this guy had a history of priors. He was armed. Was not on the ground. Technically, I would not say that he was on the ground. If he's on his hands and knees, there's a potential for him to get up and bolt. So there is that. This weather. It's like 2 days of rain. It's warm outside. And no pollen yet. I think it's just the mold. Moving on to other news. So yeah, Grand Rapids. I'm still waiting to see if there was any destruction or riots last night. I saw the protest during the day, but you know how things go once the lights go out, it's these things usually turn into a shit show. So in Grand Rapids, I really have no love for that city. It's this liberal cesspool of debauchery. It's horrible. Let's see here. Jersey authorities freeze 7 billion of assets allegedly belonging to Roman Abramovich. Yeah, this is another case of they weren't looking at the black guy. Instead, they were hunting down the property of a Russian citizen because he's Russian. He's likely has probably whatever ties he has to Putin or ties that he doesn't want to have with Putin because Putin is a guy who steals the money of the oligarchs and says, you either give me what I want or you go to prison or disappear. These are not people that want to have any affiliations with Putin, but they're being punished for what Putin's doing. He's not even part of the political system. It was bad enough that they went after his fleet of yachts, but by the time the European authorities had are done with him. Russian oligarch Roman Abramovich, who has played a role in the intermediary in the low stalled talks between Russia and Ukraine governments to end the fighting in Ukraine, will be penniless, or at the very least, no longer a member of the Très Commerce Club. According to the media reports, the Royal Court of Jersey has ordered a freeze of $7 billion in assets believed to belong to Abramovich, who, following a series of searches by police, according to a Forbes accounting, Abramovich is worth roughly $8 billion. So between the yachts mentioned above and his latest round, it's possible he could see his wealth drop below the 10-figure threshold. That is, assuming the authorities elect to permanently seize, not just freeze, the assets. I don't get this. So this is through Britain. Yeah, they are seizing his assets. And here's a guy who's actually working to negotiate a peace between Russia and Ukraine, and they're attacking him financially. It's kind of like shooting yourself in the... It's very obvious at this point the UK has no ambition for peace at this point, because when you have somebody who's trying to negotiate the peace deal, and you're in the meantime you're like, yeah, we're gonna steal your shit. How you like that? I almost had them agreeing to the, yeah, well, we're still taking your stuff. I love how if the government does it, they say it's seizing or freezing. I call it theft. This isn't even taxation. This is just, we don't like you. We don't like the country you come from. We're taking your stuff. The Royal Court also imposed a formal freezing order on April 12th, known as a Sisi Judicial. Whoa. That doesn't look like English to me. Over assets understood to be valued in excess of US $7 billion, which are suspected to be connected to Mr. Abramovich, and which are either located in Jersey or owned by Jersey incorporated entities. So yeah, they're still going after Russian citizens for what their government is doing, which I do not agree with at all. This is just them stealing for the sake of stealing. And if anything, this isn't going to move peace talks forward at all. So let's see here. Last article. Oh, and this I think is just it's like the cherry on top. It's the icing on the cake. It's just absolutely beautiful. Best and final offer. Elon Musk offers to buy Twitter for $54.20 per share. He flat out made Twitter an offer to buy them outright. 100% it would be his. You're all fired. It's a worst case scenario for the easily triggered snowflake employees at Twitter. Elon Musk has just offered to buy the entire company, and even in doing so, he hasn't stopped trolling. Elon Musk made a bold move by offering to purchase 100% of Twitter for around $43 billion. Take the 4 off, and maybe it's worth the 3 that's left afterwards. Twitter's not a profitable company. For some reason, it's used by journalists and politicians. If you don't agree with certain people, you're not allowed on it. And obviously, if you are planning to shoot up a subway car, you're still allowed on it, as long as you're aiming towards white people. Elon Musk has made a bold move by offering to purchase 100% of Twitter. I think I already read that, or did they state that twice? According to an updated 13D filing, which you can find online, he posted the actual filing on Twitter. and saying, "Here's my best offer." You can read it for yourself. Read that Musk offered to acquire all of the outstanding common stock of the issuer not owned by the reporting person for all cash, considering value the common stock at $54.20 per share. Warning Twitter management, this is his high price, and if the deal doesn't work, he would reconsider my position as a shareholder. uh, Here is the letter Musk sent to Twitter chairman disclosing his filing. Yeah, it's basically everything they already stated. This proposal is non-binding, and once structured and agreed upon, would be conditioned upon, among other things, the receipt of the. Yeah. The transcript of the voicemail. Best and final. A, I'm not playing the back and forth game. B, I have moved straight to the end. C, it's a high price and your shareholders will love it. D, if the deal doesn't work, given that I don't have confidence in the management, nor do I believe I can drive the necessary change in the public market, I would need to reconsider my position as a shareholder. This is not a threat. It's simply not a good investment without the changes that need to be made. Fair enough. And those changes won't happen without taking the company private. Okay. There is a couple issues that I have with this. One, overall, I love the fact that Musk is trying to buy Twitter. Just freaking buy it. Wipe away all their policies, write new ones. I don't know, maybe just stating the First Amendment, as long as you're not threatening or promoting violent behavior towards someone, it's fair game. You can call someone an asshole and not worry about whether they have the backing of Twitter or not. Oh man, it'd be awesome. Hate speech, just say that hate speech doesn't exist. That should just be the policy on Twitter. Hate speech doesn't exist. You have free speech. Congratulations. And if people don't like what you have to say, they don't have to follow you. They can block you from their feed. It's kind of simple. Now, if you just go by the old Howard Stern, the 20-year-old before the unfortunate counseling that he received, I'm guessing. I think he started seeing like a shrink or something. But the old Howard Stern, his policy was, if you don't like what I have to say, change the channel. Same thing with Twitter. There's like a couple million channels on Twitter. You don't have to follow them all. So yeah, what I don't like about it, and this is going to be, again, kind of controversial, because a lot of people are saying that the first thing Musk needs to do is bring Trump back. Even if I think that do I overall believe that Trump should be allowed on Twitter? Yes. Here's the unfortunate truth. CNN is hurting right now. Hurting. They're laying people off. They can't get anybody to subscribe to their new platform. They're just bleeding money like a stuck pig. It's horrible for them. I'm not complaining. I think if CNN actually covered the news, they'd probably be fine. But no, it's not news. It's an agenda. And since Biden's gotten in, their agenda's pretty much fallen apart. And because of that, they're no longer relevant. Their own viewers don't view them anymore because the whole thing beforehand was, we hate Trump. I want to watch the We Hate Trump channel. But here we are. CNN's falling apart. If you bring Trump back, CNN comes back. All of a sudden, they have something to aim their guns at. And it's just, look what Trump said now. Look at what Trump did. You also have Trump's own platform, which I guess is, for some people, it's mildly successful. Like Dan Bongino, he was talking about like I've got 500,000 followers on there, and I'm thinking like I have still never, I can't even like name the the outlet, the Trump website. It's still not widely known, but if you're a fan of his, you're probably on there. So Trump already has his own private outlet. You bring him back, it's gonna kill his website, because why would he use that when everybody can just join Twitter for free? You know. Plus, it already has the infrastructure. It's just him using somebody else's outlet. So that would actually help CNN. It would also help the Democrats in the midterm, because they would say, look, we're the party that's not Trump. And look what Trump just said. This is horrible. He's destroying the country. Even though he's not in power anymore, they're still going to try to point the finger at this dude. Um, on the other hand, there's Tucker Carlson is he's not allowed on Twitter. Alex Jones is not allowed on Twitter. You can go down this long list of people that have been kicked off of Twitter, and I think all of them should be reinstated. But for the sake of the country, please just let Trump have his own space. And I'm not anti-Trump. I think that he should have the free speech that everybody else has, right? So I'm torn between the two. I want to see the systemized destruction of CNN, this outlet of hate, the people who support a terrorist organization, also known as Black Lives Matter. I want to see this stuff go. And if they don't have Trump as their cornerstone, it's slowly but still gradually happening. And I just want to see that continue. But that's where Elon Musk taking over Twitter is a double-edged sword. Yes, we'll have free speech, but unfortunately, the assholes that have been ruining the country for the last 6 years will also take advantage of that. So that's a huge issue. It's not one that I want to be worse. Also, we know that Black Lives Matter uses Twitter to organize their riots. I'm not going to call them protests. They're not mostly peaceful protests. They're riots. Okay, they show up. They say, "Oh, who's here?" They're marching down the street. You know, when they're marching down the street, they're like, "Oh yeah, the cupcake shop. Look at that window. Oh, I just love to put a brick through that." That if that's not going through their mind, then who's doing it? Who's doing this shit? Okay, and it's always people who don't live in the cities that are being destroyed, right? They get bussed in. They tried doing this shit down in Cadillac, close to where I live, where fortunately enough, the sheriff got word from the FBI. The FBI was doing something. Holy crap. The FBI called the sheriff and said, hey, look, according to this Facebook post, you're going to have Antifa and some other people coming into your city. And the sheriff was like, no, we're not. Went down to his church, deputized a bunch of guys, said, go get your stuff. We're going to roll downtown, pick a building, stand in front of it, and have a nice night. Call me if something happens. 4 a.m, a bunch of trucks roll in. And people are looking out the windows of these buses, and they're like, gun, no, keep driving, we're going somewhere else. So it looks like elections are coming, and we can't ignore the fact that it looks like it's going to be a Republican landslide, and the only trick that the Democrats have in their bag is Black people getting shot, calling for protests and riots, a bunch of public anger about something that they could probably label or point at the fingers of Republicans for some reason. Like, hey, vote for me. This guy is the one that likes this stuff. Meanwhile, nobody is saying that they enjoy police shooting people. And of course, what, 9 times out of 10, the investigation closes. They come back and say the shooting was justified. Here's the reasoning, and everything that they were screaming in the streets for months on end was 100% false, right? We go back to Trayvon Martin, and it's like, oh, this white guy shot a black kid. Well, for one, he wasn't a kid. Was he under the age of 18? Yes. Was he the size of a linebacker? Yes. Was he slamming the guy's head into the concrete? Yes. So yeah, they show this picture of some 13-year-old, 120-pound scrawny kid. Meanwhile, the guy is massive, and you also have the news outlets cutting the call to 911 when he was initially reporting this kid that he didn't recognize in the neighborhood while he was working as neighborhood watch. And they cut it to make him sound like he was a racist. So not only did they label this Hispanic man Hispanic, okay, the people that they're allowing across the border nonchalantly because they're like, well, we must help these people. A Hispanic man shoots a black kid, but because he shot a black kid, he's white. We have that bullshit. And we're going to see a lot more of this. We already have a bunch of people on Twitter and other outlets saying this guy in Grand Rapids, he was on the ground. The police should have been able to control him. There was no reason to shoot him. They executed. That's what they keep saying, is that he was executed. No, I'm sorry, but if you are, just because you're not facing somebody, and this goes back to Georgia, the guy who passed out drunk in the Wendy's drive-thru, and the police show up because he can't move his car. The Wendy's employees called the police and said, "We've got this guy passed out. We can't wait. He's blocking traffic, and he's on private property, passed out drunk in a car." Okay. He's the one who started resisting arrest, stole a cop's taser, again, ran away, turned around to point the taser at the cop, and the cop shoots him. And that was also labeled as an execution because he shot him in the back. There's more than one way you can shoot a gun. You don't have to be facing somebody to shoot a gun or a taser. So, yeah, protesters, in my opinion, overall stupid. Especially the hands up, don't shoot thing, because that didn't happen either. All right, that's about all I have. That is the end of my bitch fest for today. Maybe I'll be calmer the rest of the day and be able to, I don't know, be happy, put a smile on my face, and not think about how the city an hour and a half south of me is erupting in violence and chaos over another pregnant woman beating asshole who doesn't know how to follow orders and steals weapons from cops while running from them for stupid traffic violations, because this sounds like the act of a smart individual who would have contributed to society. Keep on typing.